What's up, y'all? Let's do this.
Oh, hey guys, welcome to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host, and today I want to give a couple of things about the Ukrainian conflict with Russia and how it's boiling over. And I want to give you guys my take on this conflict and why we can't intervene, why the left thinks that we should intervene in Ukraine, but we can't for a number of reasons, and I'll discuss that in the podcast. But before we go any further, guys, if you guys love Nikki's World so much, please consider donating a cup of coffee, because for the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, guys, y'all help keep this podcast show alive. Y'all help me curate more stories, more topics like this to talk about. I do accept Bitcoin donations. I'm also on Locals, guys, if you guys want to support and sponsor this podcast show. If you guys love Nikki's World so much, please hit that like, subscribe. Please give me a review, good, bad, handy, ugly. And before we get the show on the road, literally, guys, if you guys love this episode and any of my other episodes on Nikki's World, please consider sharing this across all the social media platforms that are out there today. Woo! Okay, guys. Got through all the formalities today. You know, earlier today I had to do drill, which was done virtually, which was not bad, so I didn't have to put on my uniform and say, sir, no sir, ma'am, no ma'am, like that. So I didn't have to do that, so that was kind of great. But coincidentally I was in my diaper and t-shirt while doing this online training class for the Coast Guard, of course. So anyway, guys, I do want to talk about the Ukrainian conflict and why we can't intervene in the Ukrainian conflict. And the simple truth is, we can't, because the Ukrainian conflict is theirs. We simply can't. And there's a whole host of treaties that we, the United States of America, are not signatory towards. Okay? There's a whole host of treaties. Number one, we are a NATO member. Yes. We are a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was founded at the end of World War II during the Cold War. Okay? So we are a member of NATO. Given that, we are obligated to respond and help other NATO countries when they are in trouble. Okay? The fact is, Ukraine is not a NATO member. So we can't respond. We can't intervene in a conflict like this. So I don't care what you think and believe in under NATO, we're basically saying to Ukraine, we're sorry, we can't respond. We can't help y'all. We can provide material support, like say for example, we can provide ships, aircraft, guns, missiles, ammunition, war materials, but we just can't put boots on the ground. We cannot put troops on the ground because Ukraine is not a NATO country. The reason why, and this is my theory on this, guys, so don't quote me on this. The reason why Putin has decided to launch an invasion of Ukraine, because Ukraine wanted to join NATO, and Putin said, no, I don't want NATO on my doorstep. I don't want them anywhere near my neighborhood. That's why he launched an invasion. Because he wanted to get NATO out of their neighborhood and keep NATO far away. Which I would have agreed to that and say, yeah, we don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. Simple as that. The fact of the matter is, the reason why the United States government wanted Ukraine into NATO was simply to use NATO as a cover for their corrupt dealings. Okay? You gotta remember, there are a lot of politicians in America that are so deep in with Ukraine. They are so deep and so heavily invested in Ukraine. They wanted to use NATO as cover and protection for their corrupt dealings. That's why the European Union right now is pissed off at America, because America started this conflict because they wanted to get Ukraine into NATO, which was right on the front doorstep of Russia. It's as simple as that. That's why the EU is like going like this. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? It's like this is the Americans' fault for starting this conflict. They started this conflict because they wanted to get Ukraine under NATO when the European Union and most of the NATO members said, nah, we don't want them under NATO. So we want to leave them out of NATO. You know what I mean? I mean, if they were under the European Union, that'd be a different story. The EU military alliance would have come in and defend them under the EU. But America would not come in because we're not signatory to the EU. So that's why, guys. That's why we can't intervene. We cannot get involved with Ukraine on the grounds that we can't trigger certain treaties with NATO or certain articles, and one of those articles is Article 5 of NATO. Article 5 states that, like, any country that is a NATO member that is in trouble, they will come to their aid. Just like 9/11, for example, when America was in trouble because of a terrorist attack, NATO triggered an Article 5, and they sent people over to help us. That's the same thing. We cannot trigger an Article 5 because the Ukrainians are not a NATO member. They're not. So I'm sorry, the leftists, that you think that you can intervene in another foreign country. You can't. They're not under NATO. They can't trigger an Article 5. Now, they're under the European Union. That's a whole different story and a whole different set of ball game and a whole different set of rules here. Okay? That's where they can easily intervene in a conflict because they're part of the European Union and their bylaws and constitution allow that. But we as Americans can't. we can provide material support, which is not a problem. I'm all for giving them material support, but we just can't simply put boots on the ground or troops on the ground. We can't. And that's why we can't trigger those things. We can't trigger those treaties that will get us into it. So this essentially here is that Putin doesn't like NATO in their doorstep. I certainly agree with it. I'm certainly okay with it. In fact, I'd be like, yeah, keep NATO out of like Ukraine and leave NATO the way it is. You know what I mean? Leave NATO the way it is. Yeah, Romania is a NATO member, but they're more of like saying, no, we'll stay NATO, but we want to stay like the way we are. So that's why, guys, that's why I'm saying this. We cannot intervene in the Ukrainian conflict with Russia. There's no way. There's no way we can get involved. We would have to basically stay out of it. I mean, yeah, we could trigger NATO only to protect our members, which would be the ones closest to the conflict, I believe, Romania and Poland. So we would be there just to protect them and say, hey, look, hey, we would say like this to Russia, hey, you want to have your conflict with Ukraine? You go ahead, but you leave us out of this. You leave us out of this, and we'll let you two duke it out. But we'll just make sure that your side and their side stay away from Poland and Romania. Just simple as that. We'll just make sure. So that's how NATO would work in this conflict. They would say to like Russia and Ukraine, you want to have your conflict? So be it. But don't suck us into it. You can have it over there, but don't get Poland, don't get Romania involved into it. Simple as that. Now, the only support we can give Ukraine is to provide weapons and materials and ships. That's about it. That's about it we can do. Ukrainians would have to fight it on their own. And they would have to do it on their own soil. So they would have to like say like this, yeah, we're going to have to fight it on our own because NATO can't intervene because of their policy, in which I agree. European Union, on the other hand, they're sucking their thumbs right now, and they're trying to figure out how to intervene with the U.S., knowing that this is the U.S.'s fault for it. And I believe it's the Americans' fault because they wanted to get Ukraine under NATO. And that's why Putin is pissed off. Now you have the Pino, which is the president in name only, saying that, oh, we should impose sanctions like this, and this, and this, and this. And they say like this, they want to knock Russia out of the SWIFT monetary system. And I go like this. Go ahead. You're just gonna play right into the hands of China. It's as simple as that. Y'all gonna play right into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. Because all Russia has to do is go like this. We're not gonna deal with Europe anymore. We're gonna deal business outside of Europe. And we're only gonna exchange through the Chinese. You played yourself here, Pino. You really did. You played yourself here. You thought you were gonna knock the Russians out of the monetary system, but didn't realize that you're only gonna hand them off to China. So how's that gonna sanction the Russians? It's not. All it's gonna do is they're gonna walk right into China, be buddy-buddy, and say, look, I don't want to deal with the Americans. We know what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna play the old Cold War book. We're gonna play the old. We're gonna stop dealing with Europe. Stop dealing with the West, and we're gonna buddy start forming our own alliance, just like how they did with the Warsaw Pact. You played yourself here. This is why I never understand why liberals never understand that sanctions don't work, because they think sanctions are gonna hurt them. They're gonna go like this. Nah, we're just gonna trade with the Chinese. We're going to trade with non-European and non-Western countries. They don't learn that lesson, guys. They really don't. And they just played right into their hands, guys. They really did, man. They really did. They think they're going to hurt Putin? Oh, no. Putin ain't going to get hurt by that. Putin's gonna sit there and go like this. I don't care. I could shut off access to oil for them and let them freeze, and then I could trade oil with China and non-European, non-Western countries. That's all Putin's gonna do. And you think that's gonna placate to Putin, make Putin scared? He ain't scared, because all he's got to do is say, "Hey, China, you want oil? You want this and this and this? Oh yeah." That's why the Pino and the leftists and the far left socialist, communist Democrats have no freaking clue how the world works. They think they know how the world works from their warped ideology of socialist, Marxist, communist shit, but the real ones, the Chinese, are probably laughing at them in their face going, "You fools, you petty little fools." Yep. That's what's happening, guys. And that's what's really going on. And in my opinion, guys, Putin, all he has to do is put a stranglehold on Europe. Europe's dependent on Russian oil. And the one thing that the Pino, the left, and the Democrats don't realize, if you want to get Europe on the side of America, cut them off from Russia. Start producing oil and start selling oil to Europe. Reopen the Keystone Pipeline. Reopen all the pipelines that y'all closed. You know what I mean? Start selling natural gas to Europe. You cut them off. And then Russia would all have to do is just sell oil to the Chinese and to non-NATO countries and non-Western countries. So I don't know why the Democrats hadn't thought of that. Maybe they're too stupid, because all they care about is their pronouns, their gender identity, their wokeness, their this and this and this, and they don't even care about, like, oh, what do we do? How do we box Putin in? You want to box Putin in? Here's my suggestion. Start selling oil. Start selling oil and natural gas to Europe. Europe will just drop Putin's oil and go, nope, we're going to America. Simple as that, man. It's as easy peasy, man. I don't know why they don't think of it. Maybe they're too dumb. And knowing most leftists in this country, they're probably too stupid too. They probably are. But like I said, man, no American's gonna get drafted. And I'll say this: any leftists who think they're gonna get drafted to fight this war with Russia? I'm sorry to say this. It ain't happening, guys. It ain't happening. You're too fat, too weak. You're basically too stupid. And on top of that, you don't know if you're a guy or a girl to join the military. Sorry. We're not drafting you people. We're not drafting you weak soy boys, your cucks, your beta boys, and your low testosterone boys. We're not drafting y'all. Y'all too stupid to survive boot camp. Sorry, we're not. But what we do know is we're not going to be sending boots on the ground. We're not going to be putting troops on the ground. Yeah, we may drop off military gear for them, like weapons, ammo, material, like air fighters, bombers, you know what I mean, rifles, whatever. But we're not putting troops on Ukrainian soil right next to Russian troops. I'm sorry. We ain't doing that. We ain't going near that. And if you think we are, oh boy, I got news for y'all. Y'all need to read up on treaties. You know what I mean? Y'all need to read up on international treaties that we're obligated to. Okay? Or as I call it, read the fine print, guys. Read that very fine print. Y'all like to gloss over and sign the dotted line. Okay? Read that fine print. That fine print tells you what we're obligated to do, what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. Okay? And the simple matter of fact is, we're not allowed to intervene in the Ukrainian conflict because the Ukrainians are not part of NATO. They're not a member. So if they're not a member of NATO, we just have to flatly say, hey, we're sorry that you're in this conflict, but we can't intervene because you're not a NATO member. And because you're not a NATO member, we cannot put troops on the ground. We can provide you ammunition. We can provide you war materials, but I just can't put a single U.S. soldier there. Sorry. I'm sorry, we can't. So that's why, guys, the left is all on this war path of, oh, we need to go to war with Russia. We need to go to war with Russia. You know why the left wants to push for war with Russia? Because there's nothing more than wag the dog. There's nothing more than a distraction from the illegitimate president, the pie-nosed, failed administration. It's a distraction to distract you from their miserable failures and try to say, oh look, dog, oh look, squirrel, like that. It's a distraction, and they want to distract you from their failures. They want to distract you from the fact that they have a failed president, basically a dictator, and basically someone who was not duly elected, who was instead installed. So that's why, my friends, we can't intervene in the Ukraine. What this conflict boils down to, guys, is the fact that America, under the Democrats, wanted to put Ukraine under NATO to be used as cover for their corrupt dealings with the Ukrainians. Okay? So you put 2 plus 2 and you figure why the Democrats want to suck us into a war. It's simply because they want us to cover up their corrupt dealings. They want to cover up their corruption with Ukraine. Put it to you this way. They basically want to clean house. And they want us to clean house and say, we better do something about this, because if the Russians step in there and they find out that that the Democrats are the ones that are corrupt, that have corrupt dealings with these people, we're done. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's what's going on right now, guys. They just want to basically cover up for the corruption that the Democrats have been doing in Ukraine. As they say, guys, follow the money. Just follow the money, okay? If you follow the money long enough, you can see where the money is going, where the money is flowing. You can see where everything is flowing into, where the money is coming from, who's buying off this, who's buying off that, and who's paying off who. You could see that every single freaking day. You can. So that's why, guys, that's why I say this. I say this, man. I don't want to have to go to war in Ukraine just to cover up for Democrat corruption. Hell no. Instead, I just want to sit there and say, let them fend for themselves. Let them do it by themselves. You know? Leave us out of it. And yes, we should apologize to the European Union saying, yeah, we're sorry that we wanted to put Ukraine under NATO. We shouldn't have done this, and we should have left it like as it is. It's as simple as that, guys. We should have done that. But you know what? We're never going to see that apology coming from the Pino, coming from the illegitimate president. We're not. Not now, not anytime soon. We're not. So, I'm sorry to say this. We're not, don't expect an apology from the Pino anytime soon. But from me as your podcast host, yeah, we're sorry that we wanted to put Ukraine under NATO. We shouldn't have done it in the first place. Yeah, we're sorry and we're apologizing for it. But like I said, guys, we need to stay out of this conflict. We do not need to be involved or be sucked into another country's war. We do not. So we firmly need to stay out of it. Okay? We do. And if you want to know why, look at the treaty obligations that we're obligated to. And look at the fine print on those treaties that tell us what we can and cannot do. Okay? So we can't trigger an Article 5 of NATO. We can't. I'm sorry, Left. If you think we're going to trigger an Article 5 just to protect Ukraine, because Ukraine's not a NATO member, we're not swinging for that. We're not. We ain't, and we never will. Alright? So, anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoy your weekend. I hope you all have a good weekend. You know, I gotta go check my diaper just to make sure I'm not leaking or anything, like I always do, just to make sure. But thanks for listening to Nikki's World. I'm Nikki, your host. I will see y'all soon. Bye for now.